Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the MMA Junkie Q&A. It is Friday, May 15th. I am Mike Bohn, joined by the OG, John Morgan, who is down there in Jacksonville, Florida, still hanging out in the hotel room, having just a blast. Look at this man. He is agonizing. John, only 2 more days, 2 more sleeps.
If anybody's been watching full coverage of our MMA Junkie work from down here, you've probably seen the inside of this hotel room quite a few times. Well, let me tell you, I have seen nothing but the inside of this hotel room other than our 2 fight nights that we've had so far. So, listen, it's been an interesting experience, and I'm excited. We've had some great fights already. We got some more great fights on Saturday night. Obviously, the whole experience itself and what we've been dealing with in the UFC getting back to action has been interesting to cover. But I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to get outside of this place. It is driving me nuts. I've been in the same hotel room like 23 hours a day for 9 days in a row now. So, yes, I'm going crazy. I'm just going to be honest with you.
For sure. And on this end, I think I'm honestly feeling this quarantine stuff more so than any other week. I was actually supposed to be in Arizona for a bachelor party this weekend, and then was going to be going back to Vancouver, my home, for a wedding. And then it's my birthday next week, and all of that obviously off the table. And I think I'm wearing a hat today because the hair is starting to just get too out of control without a haircut at this point. Like, once it gets to a certain length, it starts getting to the curly stage, which, John Morgan, you know all about curly hair life. And yeah. I honestly don't think I've seen these curls since I was like a little kid. So it's kind of starting to freak me out now. I'm wondering if I need to go get the head shaver and do something on my own here. But these are problems I can maybe figure out over the weekend. Nonetheless, we are here for the next 30 minutes or so answering your guys' questions. Please feel free to drop anything you want to know about what's going on in Jacksonville, the card coming out tomorrow, any of the news from this past week, and we will answer some questions. But John, as we wait for stuff to roll in here, I'll ask you. I mean, we've been doing a few of these since you've been down there. I think we last spoke on Tuesday. Only been a couple days, but we've had a fight card, another set of weigh-ins, another media day. On your end, on the ground, being there, I guess behind the scenes a little bit, anything unique to report, or has it just been kind of standard procedure? And I know you detailed it a little bit. You've been stuck in your room for the most part, but anything you can share about what's been going on there the past couple days?
Yeah, it's more the same. I mean, obviously, as you get new batches of fighters in, they got to go through all the same protocol, man. You got to come in, you got to get your testing done. Everybody kind of learns the process of how it works. You continue to go get your wristbands every single day, getting your temperature checked, answering the questions. Continue to focus obviously on hand washing, sanitation, keep the mask on at all times. I got my trusty N95 mask right here. Got my trusty cloth covering as well. So you got options. Because anytime you walk out of the room here, you got to have that on. I mean, that's required. When we're at the arena, you're not allowed to take it off for any reason. So, I mean, even when we're doing the press conference, we've got a microphone, but we've got the face covering on as well. So it's a little interesting. It kind of muffles the audio a little bit. But, overall, I would say Wednesday's card started to feel just more like fights, whereas Saturday at UFC 249 was so much about, can the UFC do this? Should they be doing this? It was the argument some people were making, what's going on? There's so much that led into, how the whole thing would operate, how it would happen and what would be done. And by the time Wednesday rolled around, I think we all felt very comfortable with how things were happening. And it was more just about the fight. So it less of a moment in time of history of getting into things. It was just fights. And I think that's more the same on Saturday. Now, of course, the storyline in the main event with Walt Harris, I mean, that's outside of just fights, to say the least. But I do feel like everybody's kind of getting used to this routine. And I just kind of get the idea in talking to staff behind the scenes that this is the way it's going to be for a little while. I mean, crowdless MMA is here to stay for a while. And probably some of these procedures that we're doing, hopefully May 30th is back at the Apex in Las Vegas. But, we're going to start getting into this routine. This is kind of the way things are going to be held. So, it's going to be more of the same moving forward, I think. And then, of course, I guess the next big storyline is Fight Island. That's been actually a funny development behind the scenes, because Fight Island is the most well-kept secret in the history of the UFC. I mean, look, people talk, man. Even they like to talk. They like to share stories sometimes. But even the staff is busy guessing about trying to figure out where this damn thing is. So it's been interesting to find out, where that's going to take place.
Yeah. What do we know more about at this point? Zuffa Boxing or Fight Island?
Probably Zuffa Boxing, because it ain't happening. You know what I mean? But it's a mystery, to say the least. So although the gear is out now, you see they got the T-shirts and they got all that stuff, man. They're latching on to this thing. It's they're gonna take advantage of it.
Yeah, I saw Laura Sanko rocking some swag on her Instagram there, and we are here on Friday this morning. A little bit of news. I mean, we did have the weigh-ins, but I think it goes right into our first question here from Joseph Boza. Marvin Vettori and Uriah Faber weighed in this morning. Maybe Marvin Vettori, someone saw coming a little bit. We knew he was there. We knew he was still wanting to fight after it fell through on Wednesday. He showed up. I wasn't shocked. But when Uriah Faber walks there and weighs in at 153.5 pounds, you were right there. Did you have any idea that was coming?
It felt like such a pro wrestling move, man. The weigh-ins were all over. We knew that, Irwin Rivera wouldn't be weighing in with us. He'd be doing it in a separate place because we're waiting on, his COVID-19 test, so he couldn't be around everybody else. So we're doing the thing we do every weigh-in, counting down. Okay, how many people are left? Right, there's only 2 left. There's 1 left. That's the last one. Okay, yeah. Starting to break down the gear, and UFC staff says, no. That's not it yet. There's 1 left, and it's like 1 left. Like, how could there be 1 left? And they just kind of smile and laugh, and they're like, you got to stay tuned. You got to 1 left. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I don't understand. Who could it be? And we were all kind of guessing. We were saying, like, it just felt like so pro wrestling-ish, when somebody else, is, oh my God, is that so-and-so's music? Like, and that's what it was. And sure enough, it was funny because Heidi Dean, who a lot of people will know from hearing the weigh-in stream, so the 5 seconds, baby, she does that. She's the one that keeps people looking at the camera so they get the thing. She said, get the music ready. And I was like, get the music ready? Is she going into that pro wrestling gimmick too? I was like, no, I think she means get California Love ready. So Uriah came out, weighed in, and it was funny to see, man. It was surprising. We were all kind of joking. We were like, wouldn't it be great if like Jon Jones rolled out and he's like, I told you I wanted Ngannou. Is he still here? Like, let's go. And, obviously we knew it wouldn't be that, but it was just so pro wrestling-esque. We thought we'd have a little fun with the idea. Plus, we're all going crazy for being in our hotel rooms for 9 days straight. So we were considering the possibilities. But yeah, it sounds like, he's here in the corner, Song Yadong, Darren Elkins as well. And it sounds like Yadong was having some issues with his visa, and I'm trying not to crack up as I say that. But Yadong was having some problems, and Uriah was willing to help out Yadong because that's the kind of guy he is. So, but at this point, it sounds like Yadong is standing strong, and he's going to be able to fight in this contest. But Uriah Faber is eligible as a backup, and then of course the other one you mentioned, Marvin Vettori. I just love Marvin Vettori, man. He's weighing in he's weighing in as a light heavyweight. There are no light heavyweight fights on the card that he can even fill in for, but he's like, damn it, I came here to get a fight. I'm weighing in, and I'm going to be eligible to get a fight. Whether it's in a hotel lobby or whether it's in a cage, I'm going to get it. I tell you what was funny was Kevin Holland came in at 182.5 pounds, and he weighed in, and as he got off the scale, he's like, I told you I could have gone twice. He's like, Vettori wouldn't have to been crying, so he had volunteered to step in. So a little shot there from Kevin Holland. And I will say this, on Saturday night, I think Kevin Holland might be the one we're most looking forward to watching fight in a crowdless environment, because we're going to get to hear everything that dude has to say. We know how much he likes to talk. So that could be a fun one to keep an eye on. But yeah, it was a wild weigh-in this morning, to say the least.
Yeah, that guy definitely talks his talk. And I mean, other than that, a relatively smooth win. I mean, of course, we lost a fight late last night. Mike Davis having to pull out of the card, seemingly due to a weight cut related issue. Yourself and Nolan King of MMA Junkie report Irwin Rivera stepping in against Giga Chikadze. Am I pronouncing his last name right? I'm not.
Giga Chikadze. There you go. Well done.
Okay, there you go.
Well done.
So yeah, but
you've been paying attention to his fights. I'll let him know what a fan you are.
Hey, 2 split decisions to start off your UFC career. Just memorable stuff there. But as far as Irwin Rivera, can you tell us, how that really even came together? I mean, this is a guy, they have all these protocols coming in. Was he there cornering someone? Is he just a really local fighter? How did the process of him coming in? And again, maybe if you could elaborate a little more on what you said on the weigh-in and why we didn't see him actually step on the scale during the window, but are still expecting to see him fight.
Yeah, he's a Florida-based fighter, so he was in the area. I don't know that he was already on premises, to be honest with you. Been waiting to get some of that information and talk to people. Unfortunately, this is such a unique scenario. Normally, you can just go hang out in the lobby, run into people, and you can talk to them. You can't do that here. There's no congregating. There's no groups. There's no, that people aren't just sitting around and that sort of thing. So you can't just run into people. So you're kind of relying on people texting you back and back to you. Of course, everybody's, dealing with different things right now. But yeah, as you said, he stepped in on late notice, stepped in late last night, and that creates a problem on last-second replacements, right? Because everybody here has to be tested for COVID-19, and it takes about 24 hours to turn that around. Now, the UFC done so many tests and has been working with some labs on here. They've been able to, to kind of speed up that test in some certain instances. So because of that, and I'll be honest, credit to UFC. I thought they handled this great. I'll be honest, I was a little surprised they bothered to get somebody late. I assumed that they just say, hey, it's too difficult to do this. But, this card is going to be on ESPN, and they do want to get, all the matchups made. Plus, you just got to end up rescheduling somebody anyway. I'm sure they didn't want Giga to have to go through all this for nothing. But they got him in. But then they said this morning, hey, listen, he's not going to weigh in here. Okay, we don't have his COVID-19 test back, so he's not going to weigh in here. The commission has agreed to allow him to weigh in a different location. And he's also not going to take part in the face-offs, which – I don't know if that's a change from the Jacare Souza situation or not. Maybe it's something a lesson learned there, but I think it's a good decision. If we don't have the test back, why bring the guy into the environment? You don't obviously with in Jacare's situation, he had the mask on, he had the gloves on, and I think that was good. But an even better step is to just not have him here. I think that's been the argument as well. Is like, why even do the ceremonial face-offs? Dana's argument has been, of course, hey, look, everybody's tested, everybody's clean, so why not do them? It's an argument that will probably continue on as long as we keep going. But I like the idea of the fact that they brought somebody in. They didn't have a clean test yet. They kept it separate. They kept them out of the environment, or as some of the people said, the ecosystem. And I think that was a good move by them. Now, I will say, I just reached out before we got on this. In fact, I'll check my phone to see if it kind of reply on that, to find out if, we still don't have his weight yet, and we still don't know the results of his test yet. So I guess in theory, we could still lose that fight, but we are still waiting on the results. Hopefully we'll get it sometime this afternoon.
Okay, that's great insight there. And I was going to preview this card a little more towards the end, but I think we're getting some questions here. So let's just go into it now. I think one of the big storylines, a question here from Oliver Ursel, Edson Barboza making his featherweight debut against Dan Ige. I guess you being there in person, to me, watching it on video, seeing your photos, he looked spectacular. He looked as in shape as Edson Barboza ever really does. So good for him, not seemingly having a ton of issues getting down to 145. But I guess just start with that fight a little bit. What did you think of how he looked on the scale? And ultimately, what are you expecting out of Edson Barboza at featherweight?
I thought he looked skinny. I thought he definitely looked skinny. Listen, I didn't think that he looked like he struggled. It didn't make me feel, he came in relatively early in the process. Certainly I don't think it was easy for him, but, he had a smile on his face. And, I think he's going to be dangerous at 145. Paul Felder actually mentioned that they had done some training together at one time, and he had actually told Paul that he has to just load up on calories to stay at 155. So he feels like, maybe his body is geared towards, 145 more than, we previously would have thought. Because I was certainly in the camp of thinking, why are you making this move? He was already such a lean guy to begin with. Where's the extra 10 pounds going to come from? So, listen, it looked like it was done healthy. And, Dan Ige had a funny line, early on this week, and we were talking to him via the virtual media day about, are you going to be evaluating? What are you thinking? And he was like, Jose Aldo looked like crap on the scales, but he fought well the next night, so he's like, I'm not going to let anything go into that. So, I thought it was good. I think that's a banger, man. I think that's a fantastic fight. I was a little surprised that wasn't selected as the co-main event. I guess maybe it doesn't have the, the rankings power that Gadelha and Hill does. But I just think that fight is going to be such fireworks. I thought it would have teed up the main event real nice.
Yeah, and Edson says basically the plan for him, beat Dan Ige. He wants a top 5 fighter and then a title shot. Does that seem somewhat realistic? Of course, it comes down to the performances. If he, scrapes by with a split decision or something, or doesn't look great, maybe he could still get a top fight. But I imagine a lot of that depends on the performances. But if he goes out there and is able to blow the doors off Dan Ige and then maybe a potentially top 5 guy, that seems not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I don't think it seems out of the realm of possibility. I think it seems a little bit aggressive, but certainly, man, when you bring the track record that he has in the lightweight division, if he could do something spectacular at featherweight, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. But there's so many other talented people in that division as well, right? That featherweight division is stacked with talent. So I don't feel like this is necessarily going to be that quick of an ascension to a title shot for him. But, if he can come out and, lace out a couple Terry Edom knockouts back to back, maybe you start saying, okay, let's do this. So, I'm excited to see him at featherweight. I really am, man. Edson Barboza, such a dangerous and entertaining guy, but it felt like things had kind of plateaued for him a little bit. So, knowing at first I thought it was a wild move, but seeing him today, he did look skinny, but he didn't look like he was struggling, and I'm anxious to see how this fight goes.
For sure. And as we move on to the co-main event, another question here from Joseph Bozar, more so of a comment on this fight. I think they're rewarding Angela Hill for all the time she stepped up, including this one on 2 weeks' notice. Claudia was supposed to fight Marina Rodriguez, who, of course, is undefeated and ranked in the top 10. Of course, she couldn't get into the United States. She's Brazil-based, so they kind of had to scramble here a little bit and just basically make a fight of who was available. And Angela Hill, as we know, more than willing to step up pretty much anytime, anywhere. She's the Cowboy Cerrone of the female fighters. And she even said herself, I feel a little bit lucky to get this fight. I thought I'd maybe have to fight, one person or maybe two to get someone like Claudia, but due to the circumstances, here I am, and I have a chance to really put myself at the top of the strawweight division. Angela Hill, she has had her up and down UFC run. I think she started 2-5 in the UFC, and now she's 6-7. So she has really been able to turn it around. She could push it to 500 with a win here. But definitely a tough matchup for her. But Claudia, on her part too, has been struggling a little bit in the recent years. She hasn't had those really dominant performances we saw in Invicta and early in the UFC. So interesting fight in my mind. What do you think of it?
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, you got to respect Angela Hill for what she's done. I love it. She says, listen, I want to fight as much as possible. I came to the UFC so early in my career. I didn't get all the track record of history under my belt before I got to the top level. Now I can do that, and I want to fight as frequently as possible because I feel like I get better every single time out. So respect her for that. That anytime, anybody, any place. I love that, man. But this is a tough matchup for her, especially if Claudia Gadelha goes back to kind of her roots. Sometimes Claudia likes to show off her striking, likes to show her well-roundedness and improvement. And I think if she does that, it'll be a tough night for her because I think Angela Hill is a quicker fighter. But in terms of grappling, I think Gadelha has a clear advantage there. So, if you're Gadelha, if you're in her corner, I'd like to see her go back to her roots, so to speak, and really focus on that. Yeah, it's a big match. I understand why. I really do understand from a rankings perspective and a history perspective and all those, why they're the co-main event. I'm not saying that. I just, I'm thinking about the television production and the way it ebbs and flows and the way you kind of set up into that big main event. I just think Ige Barboza has a chance to be absolute fireworks.
Yeah, I probably would have put that there as well, but I guess it's 15-minute difference of when you're watching it, so not the end of the world here.
Oh, so you're saying it's going to a decision? I see.
That's the vibe I get. I think I've seen some stats. Jedi Goodman does a good job. Following this on Twitter, he usually tweets it out. But I think the amount of times the over hits on women's MMA fights, if you had bet that every single time, I think you would be into some decent money by now. So you more often than not, those fights do go the distance, but they're still enjoyable too. So no hate there. But as we kind of try to wrap up looking at this card tomorrow, the main event is obviously the big piece here. Walt Harris, man, this guy has been through so much. Anyone who's probably watching this chat is aware of his story and what this guy has been through in the recent months, with his stepdaughter being murdered, just so many terrible things. This fight's been postponed multiple times, but we're finally getting it. And man, Walt Harris is saying a lot of very touching things going into this fight, but I just can't imagine the pressure that sits on his shoulder to perform. Can you even try to, put a pinpoint or put into words what you can expect out of Walt Harris tomorrow night? Because I really have no idea.
I don't. It's so hard, man. Obviously, as a fellow father, man, I can't imagine going through what he went through, man. It is honestly a parent's worst nightmare, man, to have to even consider the possibilities of that. And he openly admits the dark places that he had to go through. And again, anybody that's a parent will certainly understand that. And I don't see how, as a human being, you're not pulling for Walt Harris, to have a great night and to have a special moment, to have a signature victory, just to let that emotion out, to have that moment in the spotlight. Tough ass opponent in Alistair Overeem, man. Not necessarily the guy you want to be facing on the night that you hope is your Cinderella moment or what have you. But no, listen, I think Walt is in a good place, as good as you can be, and coming back. I love what he said earlier this week and saying, that at first I felt guilty for even thinking about anything else, other than my stepdaughter. I felt like I wasn't, doing right by her, and then I prayed and I got the answer that. It's okay to move on. And that's, of course, man, that's what anybody would want. Nobody that leaves this earth would want the person they left behind to be depressed and never move forward with their life, never continue on with their own passions and their own dreams because of what happened to you or so it's a difficult situation to be in. But as far as the emotions, I can't understand what he's dealing with. And, I got to think, and as weird as this may be, man, I imagine he just wants to beat the piss out of somebody, man. And I mean, can you imagine how angry you would be that somebody did that to a loved one of yours? And so on the surface, you could say, well, he's got this pent up aggression and energy that he wants to release. And I'm sure he does, man. You think about just the release that he must want to have. But, man, you can't go do that against Alistair Overeem. You can't go in there in some kind of wild rage and think you're just going to throw him to the floor and beat that's not going to happen. So he's got to be smart. He can't fight emotional. He's got to have a great performance. I mean, Alistair Overeem is one of the most accomplished names in the history of combat sports. So it's just such a tough position all the way around because, obviously Overeem is a dangerous, dangerous opponent. But how can you not be cheering for Walt Harris and just hoping? I mean, obviously as journalists, we're not cheering for anybody, but as a human being, how are you not hoping that Walt Harris has something special that he can celebrate that can bring some joy to him and his family and something unique? So, man, I don't know. It's just going to be crazy to watch.
Yeah, I can't imagine the emotions he's going to have in there, and just really curious to see how he channels it inside the octagon. And, on the flip side, we do have Alistair Overeem, who's kind of, flying under the radar a little more so, but it's a hugely important fight for him too, man. I mean, who knows if that, he is still really upset about the stoppage in the Rosenstruck fight, despite the fact that his lip got, tore his face in half. He felt that he was still good to keep going. He thought he could have covered up for those final 3 seconds, then would have won a decision 100%. We saw the scorecards up to that point. And then who knows, maybe he gets that rematch with Ngannou and we could have seen him fighting a few days ago. Who knows? Would have changed a lot of things there. But instead, we have the questions, is Alistair Overeem done? The question is chin again, all these different things. Overeem does seem to have 9 lives like a cat or something in his ability to just continue resurfacing as a title contender. So I feel like even if he loses this, it's maybe just 1 or 2 wins till he's back. But I do feel like, given his age, I mean, I think he turns 40 on Sunday. His birthday is May 17th, so it's the day after the fight. So as of midnight, after his fight, it'll be his birthday. So that's interesting as well. Hopefully, for him, he's probably looking to give himself a good birthday present. But do you kind of agree there? Is this Overeem's kind of crossroads in terms of maybe making that final run, or we all think that Walt Harris is maybe going to do something special here? What happens with Overeem?
Here's what's interesting with Overeem is, man, the guy is absolutely a huge name. I mean, he's a legend in combat sports. You think about what he's accomplished, across multiple MMA organizations, K1 as well. His name has power. It means something. So you're right. He can. A couple of wins for Overeem, and he's always at the top. I mean, he's an easy sell to anybody. Here's what I'm really interested in, though, and it's not just Overeem, but I think it applies to him. When I think about Overeem, I think about a guy that can headline like anywhere in the world, especially, you go to like Europe, the Netherlands, obviously, most especially. You go to Japan, you go to the Asian markets. I mean, he has a big name in a lot of places. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for him to sometimes get bigger opponents or big moments, big opportunities because of his name. Now, is that as important when you don't have crowds and you don't have tickets to sell? I mean, when you're only doing either the Apex or Fight Island, and again, you're not really trying to sell tickets. You're not really trying to tease that local market as much. Do some of those opportunities go away? I mean, I think a lot of us, for instance, thought when UFC 250 was going to be in May, I know I at least felt like one of the reasons Jose Aldo got the call for the title shot there was because it was going to be in Brazil and they wanted to sell some tickets, and lean out to the Brazilian fans. So, will Overeem, kind of lose some of his opportunities because they're not traveling around? It's just, in one location. I don't know, because I've always thought that, he gets those nods because of his drawing power and his name recognition. But yeah, Overeem, a dangerous guy, even as he nears 40 years old. Certainly incredible technique. For me, it's funny that Jairzinho Rosenstruck fight. I think a lot of people forgot how one-sided that fight was. Rosenstruck obviously had that amazing finish. But, when people were talking about the Ngannou fight and just, oh, man, this Jairzinho, this unstoppable force, I'm like, hey, whoa, you did watch the other 24 minutes and 55 seconds of that, right? And so anyway, listen, I think, Alistair, again, I was talking to somebody earlier, what stakes are here. This, honestly, to me is a lot like Glover Teixeira and Anthony Smith was. That, this is not a number one contender fight. No way about it. But the winner is going to be able to at least, be maybe one fight away, 2 at most, of getting a title shot. Whereas the loser is going to have to go down that ladder a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Eduardo Bueno drops a comment: if there's one heavyweight who will not give a damn about Harris's feelings, his name is Overeem, which I tend to agree with. I mean, I don't think in the lead up, I think Overeem from the moment, I was in that fight week in DC when they were originally supposed to face off, and the stuff was very fresh. And he, couldn't have said more of the right things in regards to what was going on with Walt Harris. He's being all but class. They hugged each other today. But I think when push comes to shove and they're actually in the octagon, I think that comment by Eduardo is absolutely on point there. Overeem, he's kind of said in the lead up, like, I've experienced so much in my career. Like, this is kind of exciting for me, getting to do something new like this unique fight week with no fans and just all these different things. So I think Overeem is one of the better people at compartmentalizing things like this and being able to move forward. So curious to see how that fight plays out. But I definitely want to move on a little bit from this card, John, talk about some of the news going on this week. The question I've been wondering since Wednesday night is, what was the exact extent of your question to Dana White about the New York Times article? Because I don't think you were able to actually get out what you wanted to say there without him saying, I don't give a fuck.
I didn't know if you were going to lay out the real quote. I guess this is online, right? No, that was a classic Dana rant. Yeah, no, it's interesting, man. My questions about the New York Times article, because, I thought the New York Times article, it had some factual evidence in it, something that's pointed out. It says in the guidelines that, fist bumping and, high fiving and things of that nature won't be happening. So, when Dana shows up to the ceremonial weigh-ins and does the fist bumping and the hugs and that sort of thing, it's kind of a violation of that. And of course, it said as well that there weren't going to be in-cage interviews, and there have been in-cage interviews. So, I just wanted to ask him what he thought about that, and, if there were changes planned or if there was evaluation because of that. I get the argument from the UFC perspective as well, which is, look, everybody's tested here. Everybody's tested clean. And so because of that, I feel comfortable with it. And, for me, the way I see it, especially having been here during this whole time, is like, I don't really see the fist bumping as some type of inherent danger, and I don't see the in-cage interviews as like, oh, the irresponsibility of this all. I mean, again, everybody has been tested. But if the idea here, again, is to eliminate as many contact points as you can between people so that you're preventing the spread of this. I mean, the two fighters, inevitably, they're going to have contact. So you really can't stop anything there. But, I mean, you don't have to have the face-offs the day before. I mean, we like it. I mean, I like having the photos for the website, and I like having the video for us to promote as well and all that. I appreciate having it. The in-cage interviews definitely would be a lot more awkward if they were done remotely. I mean, we've all had to learn as journalists how to do these video Zoom interviews and that sort of thing. I mean, we get it. It's not the same as being there and sitting there next to somebody and really kind of getting to sense their body language and that kind of relation, all that. So I get it. It would be different. But, man, if I was evaluating the product, I don't hate the point of the New York Times article, which was, look, these two pieces right here are places they're not following their own guidelines. Shouldn't we be following those guidelines as well? I think it's a valid point. I do understand the UFC's argument as well, though, that, look, everybody's tested, therefore it's really not that big of a concern. But I don't think the discussion's over with. I think it's going to continue happening. But it's not going to be a discussion that's unique to the UFC. I mean, look, you see it. Cities are coming back. Sports are coming back. And as I've said from the beginning, unless you're going to sit around and wait for a vaccine for this thing, you've got to figure out how to work in this environment. And that's just not mixed martial arts. That's everything. That's every aspect of society. So, listen, Dana came back later, I think, answering somebody else's question, said he hadn't even read the report. So my question might have not even, resonated with him very well anyway, had he allowed me to get it all the way out. But, listen, I think that's discussions that we need to continue having. And look, we're going to have to, circle back to this whole week here in Jacksonville in about 2 weeks, right? That's what they say, that the incubation period can last as long as 2 weeks. I can tell you from what I've seen here in Florida, the UFC is taking extensive steps to try and prevent the spread of this COVID-19 while it's happening here. Is it flawless? It's not, but it's a hell of a lot different than what it's like at home. I mean, it's the cliche that everybody throws out. Well, there's more people walking around at the grocery store. It's 100% true, man. I mean, I have come in contact with way less people in the last week than I have here than I do when I'm at home in Vegas and I have to run to the grocery store or I have to go get whatever. So I can tell you they are taking steps, but maybe there's additional steps that need to be taken. And again, this is going to be an ongoing discussion in every sport, in every aspect of society.
Very true. And that was at the post-fight press conference for UFC on ESPN Plus 29 Wednesday. And in the main event of that card, I go to a question here from Underground Rhino. What do you think about the Cruz stoppage compared to the Anthony Smith late stoppage? I mean, I think obviously it kind of speaks for itself. Different refs, people make different calls, stuff like that. But I think the topic we do need to talk about is that stoppage in the main event, or lack thereof, I guess. Man, being cage side there, watching it on TV, that was a little tough to watch. Dana White's exact quote at the press conference was that got a little tough to watch. And this is a person who's being, inches away from seeing Anderson Silva's leg get snapped in half and seeing, countless people get knocked out in horrific fashion. So for him to say that, I think means a little something. Again, you were there, you were cage side. What was going through your mind when you were watching that? And maybe now that you've had a couple days to digest it, what do you make of what happened in there with Anthony Smith and Glover Teixeira? And obviously, the referee allowing that to go on pretty darn long.
Yeah, it was tough to watch. And I think, if you're being fair, you're not talking just about the referee, you're talking about Anthony's corner as well, and, Mark Montoya, James Krause, for instance. I mean, those guys are incredibly knowledgeable. So, you're not questioning whether or not, they deserve it or they know what they're doing. Like, you're not doing that. They're questioning their credentials. You're saying, did they make the right decision? And Anthony Smith came out and said, look, I'm glad they did what they did. I wanted to carry on. I wanted to keep going, but it did get a little bit tough to watch, man. It seemed like from the body language, that he was kind of done, and I know it's difficult, man. This argument, we've had it before. This is not the first time we've had it in mixed martial arts. Why do people not throw in the towel, or why did the referee allow it to go on longer, that sort of thing? I mean, I thought it should have been stopped, to be honest with you. I think it could have been stopped in the fourth. I think they could have, not sent him out for the fifth. It's unfortunate to watch. It's not part of our culture in mixed martial arts for whatever reason. And there's a lot of discussion why it's not. The fact that the way the pay structure is set up, you lose half your paycheck. You don't want to be the guy that costs your fighter, half a paycheck if he did have a miraculous comeback left in him. The fact that, unlike in boxing, there are other ways to win the fights. If you're being outstruck, you can still maybe take the fight to the ground. You can always get a submission. I mean, there's that discussion. I was talking on the road show the other day with Oscar Willis, and he thought, maybe one of the reasons that we don't have that similar thing that boxing does is because we haven't had a death in the UFC the way boxing has. And I know it sucks to talk about that, but I did think that maybe that's true. You know what I mean? I've always said, unfortunately, I don't think it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when. At some point, as much as it sucks to say this, someone's going to die in this. It's going to happen. And, when that happens, will that change things? Will it have that effect where people go, look, there are serious ramifications here, far bigger than a paycheck, far bigger than a win. And we have to think about these things and seriously consider it. And it's funny. I mean, I hadn't really thought about that angle before, but I thought, that may be true. So, listen, long-winded discussion, because I think it's a topic that I think people want to continue discussing and talking about at some point. It's one that we shouldn't forget. But overall, yeah, it was hard to watch, man. And it was crazy because Anthony Smith looked so good to start that fight, man. At first I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to walk right through Glover Teixeira, man. He's looking on point. He's quick. He's throwing combinations. He looks fantastic. This is the best he's ever looked. And then everything changed. You know what I mean? I think it's hard to maybe think, oh, well, maybe he's got one in his back pocket as well. But it got tough to watch. And I thought from the body language that, Anthony Smith was kind of done. And I wish it would have been stopped a little sooner than it was.
Yeah, and there was moments there. I mean, of course, as the fighter, if Anthony Smith wanted out, he could have gave up his neck to Glover in one of those situations. He could have continued to turtle up, but every time he was being warned, he was trying to move around. But I think you need to see some of those things if you're the corner. Of course, there was opportunities for Anthony Smith to get himself out of that fight. We know his character. His nickname is freaking Lionheart. He's not going to go out there and do that himself. So you need to kind of make the decision for him. But I guess he's content. I mean, he's put out his statement saying that he is fine with how it unfolded. He wants people to basically mind their business, is more or less the crux of that statement. Let me worry about me, you worry about you. So I just hope Anthony does have a speedy recovery. I mean, obviously a guy who's being very good to us and is kind of, around the media side a little bit more in terms of being an analyst. So that was a tough one to watch, but Glover Teixeira, man, he deserves all his credit. That guy's made of otherworldly stuff. Like, he is just a hard man in terms of being able to walk through that fire and still implement his game. So that was pretty darn impressive. But I do want to move on as we kind of get short here on time. A question from Manny Novello, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that. Who do you think Jon Jones faces at this catch weight at 220 pounds? I think this kind of circles into a greater discussion of what's going on with Jon Jones right now. He and Francis Ngannou are having some back and forth on Twitter right now. Jon Jones, basically saying he's down to take that fight. He says we're both in, but he says we need the bag. We're both down for it. The UFC now just has to step up and pay us, which of course is the big piece of the puzzle there that would need to come together. It's easy to say I'll fight anyone, but only for the right price. So what do you make of this whole thing?
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to caution everybody about is I like the idea. I love the fact that it's being discussed because to me, it really kind of cures a couple of problems at once, right? Like, I mean, we have all these light heavyweight contenders. Which one really deserves it more? You know, is it Dominic Reyes? Is it Maheta? Is it Glover? Is it Blachowicz? Which one stands out above the rest? And you can make arguments for all four of them, but I don't know that any of them are like, that's the clear fight that we have to make right now. Meanwhile, Francis Ngannou, he's sitting around waiting for Danny Cormier, Stipe Miocic, that trilogy to play out, and we don't know when a time might happen on that. So, you know, for me, it's an incredibly compelling fight, and I love the idea of it. And Jon Jones, you know, moving up to heavyweight, facing the scariest, most dangerous guy, and doing so, that's exciting. And then you start extrapolating it out from there and think, well, what if Jon Jones beats Ngannou, and what if DC beats Stipe, and what if he'd stick around for one more fight? We get that trilogy. I mean, there's ways to think about it. It'd be exciting, but I'm being cautiously optimistic about it as well for exactly what you said. It's one thing to say, hey, send me the contract right now, and I will face Francis Ngannou as long as it's $50 million. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, what was that last part there? It has to be $50 million. Yeah, and we've seen that, and I think a lot more fighters have been kind of more open about, you know, admitting that's kind of a way to accept the fight without accepting it. Is like, yeah, I told the UFC I'd take the fight for $50 million. You know, and that part never comes out. You know, it's like, well, of course the UFC wasn't going to say. So, you know, listen. Props for jumping on the opportunity, and I hope that the bags can be secured because I got to be honest with you. You know, I've never been one that feels like Jon Jones has to move up to heavyweight. But man, if he's going to do it, what a way to do it against the most feared guy on the planet, man! I think that would be massive. You could do it for an interim title if you wanted to, an interim heavyweight title. But that could be a non-title fight and still be, you know, a huge draw. That would just be such an easy fight to sell. So I love the idea of it. I hope that they can figure it out.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was wondering, like what kind of movement that would do pay-per-view wise, because I think a lot of people are aware of Francis Ngannou, but I don't know if he quite has that, you know, big popping star power in terms of what would he collaborate with Jon Jones on a pay-per-view. But I think,
bro, can you imagine?
If you promote that right, I think it easily does very well. It just comes down to exactly making it, you know, and kind of building it the right way.
Can you imagine the commercials on that with the video production people that the UFC has? I mean, the baddest dude on the planet, Jon Jones. The scariest man on the face of the earth, and they're showing these highlights and the guy who's just knocking people out. I mean, who wouldn't be like, oh, I gotta see it? I mean, come on, that'd sell. That would totally sell.
I hope it happens, man. I think, you know, light heavyweight, a little stagnant right now. I mean, we've seen Jon Jones fight all these guys already. I think we're kind of craving for something fresh. No disrespect to fresh contender Jan Blachowicz, but I think we've been wanting the Jon Jones heavyweight move for so long now. It would be great if it could finally happen. But moving on to the last thing I wanted to talk about today. I didn't see anyone ask a question about it, unfortunately, but I think it's important to talk about Khabib Nurmagomedov, everything that's going on with his father right now and how this could effectively impact the timeline for the Justin Gaethje fight. I know you spoke with Dana White as well at one of the press conferences, and he said, you know, September, I talked to Khabib even, you know, in the midst of his father's health crisis, and he is down to fight in September. He's a man of his word, et cetera, et cetera. I can't imagine how the situation could change if something, you know, happens health-wise and it goes really bad. I mean, this guy is Khabib's father, obviously his coach. Just going into a fight that quick when you've had someone around you in your fighting career, that seems like it would be something really emotional and maybe too much. But what do you kind of just make? Of course, our thoughts are with Khabib's family and his father and stuff like that. But do you think this could have an impact on how lightweight division shakes out?
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, knock on wood. Anybody's health and safety, man. You hope that everything's fine. But yeah, to be honest with you, until we know exactly what's going on, I almost feel like it's irresponsible to even try and speculate. I mean, this is anybody, you know, that loses their father. Obviously, you know, that's a huge moment in their life. But when it's not only your father, but you know, your coach, your mentor, the leader that he is, and you know, I think we've seen over the years the dynamic between that family. You know, I think Ali Abdelaziz, his manager, was recently saying, recently that like, his father's the real gangster. He's the one that calls the shot. If he says that's what Khabib does, and Khabib's been over that. Hey, I asked my dad. Whatever he says we do, that's what we do. So yeah, man. You don't want to speculate. I think we all understand what could possibly happen. But if something were to happen to his father, to just say, well, it's May now. Do you think you'll be done with the grieving by September and ready to go? I mean, it's tough, man. So yeah, I honestly feel like it's almost irresponsible to speculate as to what is going to happen with Khabib until we know exactly what the status of his father is. And I think we're all, we've seen the well wishes out there. I think we all agree. We're all hoping he pulls through whatever he's battling right now.
Yeah, and of course, credit to Conor McGregor too. Shows some class out there, and sending a very nice message to Khabib and their family and everything. We asked it earlier this week. I mean, is there any chance Conor McGregor slides in there and fights Justin Gaethje, especially given these circumstances?
There's always a chance that Conor slides in, man. He's the biggest star in the sport, So anytime I think that he wants to fight, he gets to at least be mentioned in the discussion. Assuming everything does, pull through with Khabib's dad, I think the fight to make right now is Khabib and Gaethje unify those titles. Again, they do share a management group, so I'm sure they'll want to, both sides of that paycheck. They'd appreciate that. But yeah, I don't think Conor necessarily needs to slide in first. But things could definitely change. As we just said, there's a lot of uncertainties. And anytime Conor McGregor's name is involved, it's a possibility. I mean, Jesus, I remember when they said he was going to fight Floyd Mayweather right away. We're like, come on, that's never going to happen. What are you talking about? And then it happened. So anytime Conor's involved, never say never.
For sure, and I can share a little news nugget, I guess, as we close out here. I've told Tony Ferguson will not need surgery on his orbital bones, so that is good news for him. He seemingly can recover from that orbital break without surgery, so that could maybe expedite his timeline for getting back in there. So that's great news for Tony and his health. But that does do it for us today, John. I know we went a little overtime. Feel like the people in the back might be getting a little upset with me right now. So I will wrap it up, but we do have another fight night coming tomorrow night. I will allow you to, set the table here. What are you most excited for on Saturday night? And, give us the lay of the land of what people can expect coverage wise on MMA Junkie.
Leaving the arena and going home back to Vegas. That's what mostly, no, I'm just kidding. Listen, man, I think it's a great card on Saturday. I really do, man. We've been treated to great fights throughout this 10-day stretch. Man, how can you not be, like I said, the human element of Walt Harris, man? I mean, that's just such a human interest story. I just don't know how you're not compelled by that. But, so a lot of great fights on here, and I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be another one, entertaining one. Again, I think I'm most excited maybe to see how much Kevin Holland talks in complete silence and how much Big Mouth gets heard on the stream there. I think that'll be fun. But I think there's going to be some entertaining fights from start to finish. And man, I'm just anxious to wrap up the stretch. I mean, it's been an honor to be here covering this and to be a part of this. It's been history, and documenting it has been cool. But I'm ready to get back home to Las Vegas and I just want to get out of this hotel room. Is basically what I want. I'm sure Jacksonville's a nice city. I've seen none of it. I've seen literally none. I'm sure it's an amazing place. I've seen none of it. I want to go home. That's it. And now I know that Kenny Hathaway's in the back about to just rip your head off. So we better wrap up quickly.
All right, sounds good. Well, appreciate everyone joining. We will be back for another one of these in the near future. And for now, just keep it locked to MMA Junkie for all of John's great coverage for On the Ground and the rest of the team during this final event of the UFC's 3-event stretch on this return from the coronavirus pandemic. Thanks again. Have a great day.